Hey YouTube, sorry it took so long. I've been crazy busy through California and about to Oregon tomorrow, so I wanted to take some time today to talk about the load boards and planning for those of you thinking about joining the IC program and lease purchase program and going into IC with Schneider or SFI, I guess, because you can get the truck from SFI, but you can go anywhere via Landstar, JB Hunt, etc. for a fee. Anyway, the thing that you guys are going to be working on is called a load board. It's basically a list of loads that are available within a certain radius of your choosing from that area, and depending on what company you're with is going to depend not only on the loads that you have to choose from, also the pay. I started with Schneider, so I know a little bit about their load board. Their procedures are a little stricter than JB Hunt, who I'm with now, but there are pros and cons to both load boards. Anyway, let's get right into it. So, booking a load. I know a lot of ICs coming in, myself included when I first came in, super excited. You know, when you see some of these loads that pay, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, you jump on it. It feels so good because you don't see stuff like that as a company driver. There are certain things that a good IC has to plan for, and certain other things that a great IC will look for, and you have to know when to turn down loads. That's probably the hardest thing to learn, when to turn down some of these loads. And I'll give you an example. This one time I found a load going to Cheyenne, Wyoming. I know now that's a no-no, but at the time it went to Cheyenne, Wyoming from my home in Virginia, and it paid $7,000. I jumped on it. I didn't look at anything after that. I was stuck in Cheyenne for a week. So, remember in the last video I said you're chasing money, not miles? One load in an entire week? No. You want to look at planning your loads on the load board like a chess match. You want to think, 3, 4, 5 moves ahead, so that you're prepared. You want to pick up a load from point A to point B, but you also want to look at point B to see what's coming from there. Because as I said, if you pick up a good paying load that goes to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and you don't look to see what's coming out of Cheyenne, Wyoming, it's gonna be bad. I ended up having a deadhead, which means just drive with no load. I had to deadhead 700 miles down to Phoenix in order to find a load. So keep that in mind when you're first exploring the load board. ICs through Schneider and JB Hunt are percentage based. Most are going to be percentage based. 65-35 generally. That's how it is with Schneider and JB anyway. The two different things with Schneider's load board, the price you see on the load board is the price you're going to take home. You don't have to do any math. So the loads are going to look like they're cheaper, but that's just because that's your cut. With JB Hunt, the load boards are the total load pay plus your fuel surcharge, and you get to keep 100% of the fuel surcharge, which is, like putting a Band-Aid on a Columbia necktie, and you get to keep the 65% of the total load pay, but you have to do the math. You have to take off 35% of that pay in order to find out what you're going to take home. So those are two different things to think about. The planning aspect is the hardest thing to get. It took me months and months to learn exactly what I was doing, and still to this day, it's really hard to turn down the big money loads. It is, especially if you want to go to one place just to say you've been there. It's easy to get stuck in that, but don't do it. Good ICs chase money. Good ICs plan A to B, B to C, C to D. Now with Schneider, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a couple years since I worked there. For Schneider, you can plan, I think it's 4 to 5 loads at a time, but getting a load removed after you have it pre-planned on you it's rough. You have an easier chance at scratching off a tattoo. It's difficult. Now with JB Hunt, getting a load off is they allow you to plan up to 3 pre-plans plus your current load, so 4 loads total. But that also includes if they put like a trailer move, if they want you to go pick up an empty at a certain place, that counts as one of those loads. So you just want to keep that in mind when you're planning your loads. Excuse me, it's been a long day. So when you get to the load board, you're going to see big money. You're not going to be used to it. You want to learn how to plan from point A to point B, depending on what you got going on in your life. Depending on what board you're on, if you're with JB Hunt, don't look at the mileage pay so much, because that's not the actual mileage pay. What I like to do with JB Hunt to get an accurate mileage pay is I like to take the total load pay for the load, take off 35%, add that to the fuel surcharge, and then divide that by the miles to give me a more accurate idea of the mileage pay. As I said, with Schneider, it's all right there. The load pay and the fuel surcharge, all in there, and there's really no math to do. I like Schneider more because of the facilities and stuff, but I find I make more money with Jimmy. So, but lately it's been rough chasing trailers, but that's another video altogether. Anyway, this is going to be short and sweet. I just wanted to let you guys know, when chasing these loads, just make sure to plan ahead. Don't look at the big ticket items and just your eyes blow off. If you can find, a 200 to 300 mile load that pays $1,200, that's a hell of a lot better than the 1,200 mile load that pays $2,000, right? So you can do 600 miles in a day, depending on where you're at. So if you can get those 200 to 300 mile loads, at $1,200, you do that, for 5 days. That's some money. That's some good money throughout the week. Anyway, that's my point. Just plan ahead and know how much it costs to run your truck. You have to know how much it costs per mile to run your truck. You do not want to take the bad mileage rates and lose money on loads. I try to remain in the $2.50 to $3 threshold. I won't take a load less than that. Cost about $1.70 to run the truck with fuel prices. So when I go on the load board, that's generally what I'm looking for. And I'm always on the load board. You always want to be looking on the load board, because you're not the only one looking, and those loads, they disappear so fast. Especially if you find a really good one.